Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group Biweekly Sync. It is August 30th, the end of summer, which is always a sad time of the year, but I'm excited for fall, and I hope everybody is as well. For those of you who might be new to the call or new to watching these recordings, we always like to go over what we're discussing and why we have these calls. So the Special Interest Group calls are part of the larger SharePoint Patterns and Practices program, and the idea was really to provide a forum to focus on different areas. So this call is focused on an open discussion around SharePoint Framework and client-side development patterns associated with SharePoint, as well as the PNP JS Libraries and the reusable controls and the Office 365 CLI. Which are emphasizing simple, repeatable, tested designs and patterns to hopefully make your development lives a little bit easier. We have another call that's focused more on PowerShell and traditional, CSOM SharePoint development. Traditional makes it sound like it's ancient at this point, which did not mean to do.
It's not. No,
it
don't
is
say
not.
that.
It is still fully supported. So if you're still doing the CSOM managed code development, the other special interest group call may be of interest to you. And of course, please do attend as many of these calls as you would like. We always love to have you here. So two links down there at the bottom, SPPNP-community will take you to the Microsoft Tech community for into the SharePoint section of the Microsoft Tech community, so you can ask your sort of general questions. It's a great place for the type of questions about how would you design this solution, how would you structure this application, things like that aren't necessarily questions for a specific library or SharePoint framework itself. And the second link there, aka MS-SPDev-docs, will take you to the SharePoint developer documentation for all of SharePoint developer space. So whether you're new to SharePoint Framework and looking to learn that and get involved in that, you can follow through all the tutorials and demos there. But as well, the CSOM managed code development and even the truly ancient, before time, WSP full code deployment solutions.
Stop it! Farm solutions are completely fine in on-premises. Patrick, stop it!
They are, man. They're fine. Just don't do sandbox solutions.
Okay, that's true. That's true.
But no.
Or site definitions.
Or site definitions, or delete the root site collection. All your developer documentation, but we digress. All the developer documentation is at that location, and we are working to improve that constantly. So if you do see places we can improve that, or things that might be missing, or things that could be made better or more clear, please do let us know. I believe, and I'm not lying when I say this, there's a feedback link at the bottom of those pages, so definitely check that out. So moving into our agenda for this call, as always, we'll start. Vesa says hi again. Man, we really need to get that deleted, but it's hidden when you edit the slide, which is awkward. Engineering update on SharePoint Framework. We'll do a quick update on the PNP JS Clientside Libraries, as well as the Office 365 CLI and the SPFx reusable controls. And then we'll get into two great demos, one from Maddie on an application customizer to notify end users of a SharePoint site when the underlying group has been archived. So a neat solution there. And then from David, we've got building templated SPFx web parts, another great solution. So excited to see both of those demos coming up later in the call. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, but as always, we'll try and keep up with the questions and the chat in the IM window. So feel free to post your questions and things like that there. Before we get started, I always like to mention the opportunities to participate and get involved in the PNP SPFx, this special interest group, or as well just sort of patterns and practices in general. And the best way, I emphasize this every time, is we really like the demos from everybody out there. I think that's a really valuable part of the call, and something that I know I learn a new technique or something new each week we do those. So if you have ideas for a demo and would like to do something, it's as easy as just reaching out to myself or Vesa, and we'll get you on the schedule. We are a little booked out at this point, so don't fear, we will get you on the agenda, but it will be a couple calls out at this point. But so if you have something, please do reach out, let us know. Love to get you booked and love to give you an opportunity to show off the awesome work you're doing out there for your customers or for your company. You can always demo an @PnP solution as well, so anything Office 365 CLI, the PNP JS Libraries, or the reusable controls make great demos both inside and outside of SharePoint Framework. As always, we very much encourage you to contribute on GitHub, which can take a couple different shapes. You can provide us, you can report issues on either SharePoint Framework or any of the things I've mentioned, the libraries, the controls, or the CLI. You can report issues. You can submit pull requests. Very much we welcome those pull requests. So if you have an idea and it's a quick little change, please do a pull request. When I get some time, I'm going to try and record a video on that process of having an idea or taking an issue and working that all the way through to a pull request. So keep an eye out for that. Hopefully, maybe later this week. Well, it's already Thursday, so maybe early next week. And then finally, we very much, if it's not a specific issue or things like that, it's just general feedback, absolutely welcome that as well. Feedback on these calls, feedback on our documentation, feedback on just sort of how we're doing things, what we could do better. Very much always appreciate that. So we in the core team definitely talk about it, discuss, we heard from so-and-so this, what can we do to help with that? So please keep that feedback coming. It really makes the entire program better for everyone involved. And so now we'll pass things over to Vesa to give us our SharePoint Framework update.
Thank you. So I'm taking over the presenter. If I can, or were you sharing your screen? No, you were actually sharing the slides, so that was successful. Cool. So a few things from a engineering side of the house. So obviously the two classic slides, it's always keeping here. First of all, the documentation, AKMS SP DevDocs. We will do a pretty big push on updated documentation in here actually later today. So updated documentation on SharePoint Framework, new stuff, updated documentation on modern experiences and a few other stuff to address some of the community questions and discussion which have been happening lately. The views are growing quite nicely in here. The August is, however, the summer vacation time in Europe, which means that they're slightly down in August, potentially from July, but we'll see how it goes. The other thing what I want to pinpoint, and I always have this in the slides, is the issue list. So please keep on reporting these issues in issue list. We are falling behind and we're slightly behind of addressing them. We're trying to catch up as fast as possible. Ignite 1.6 release, everything else is now causing us slight delays on anything what we do, but we're trying to stay up to date on what's happening on the issue list. We will have additional engineers helping on the issue list and your reports pretty soon. So that process is already started, but now we're in a training phase and a process agreement phase on that. Now, what about SharePoint Framework? So quickly, from a adoption and usage perspective. So once again, if you're looking into is people using SharePoint Framework, answer is yes, they are. So it's actually interesting. I just today last quick calculations on the usage. So last time in Ignite, if we compare the usage from a year ago in Ignite, the usage is 10 times than it was in a year ago in Ignite. So the SharePoint Framework usage has exploded 10 times bigger than it was a year ago in Ignite. So that gives you a perspective on how fast and how huge and how widely SharePoint Framework is already used in SharePoint Online. Now, obviously, it will be used in SharePoint 2019 because SharePoint 2019 supports natively modern pages. SharePoint 2016 Featurepack 2 supports SharePoint Framework web parts. And the usage is actually, even this week, these metrics, which you can see on the slides, these are custom third-party solutions running in the SharePoint from a year ago, July, until actually yesterday. So the final marker is yesterday's marker. So you can clearly see the growth pattern. and it's growing exponentially. So this week, I don't know what's happening, but it's again, we're making all-time records on the SharePoint Framework usage. So that is pretty cool. And obviously, whatever we are releasing right now, it's going to just grow the usage even more. So using SharePoint Framework as a tooling for creating tabs in the Microsoft Teams, starting from 1.7, is going to help on, people are going to use it more. 1.6, and this is let's start with within the within the order of the slide. So SharePoint Framework 1.6, ETA still is end of August, and we never ship on Friday. So what is today? We're going to ship 1.6. So end of August, but we never shipped on Friday. So what is today? We're gonna, yes, and the winner is Joe. So unless there's a really last minute, oh my God, we completely missed this, the 1.6 will go live within 2.5 hours. So you can expect announcements in social media, in Facebook and in Twitter, and blog posts and everything else within pretty much in 2.5 hours. If that doesn't happen, it means that we found out a really last minute, oh my God, we can't do something, and we need to delay that until early next week in the worst case scenario. We never ship on Friday because you should never actually deploy production ready code on Friday. That's just a no-no in IT business. Now, as part of 1.6, there will be a native graph, the Microsoft Graph Access, and the Azure AD clients. Those capabilities will go GA, so you're able to start using them in a normal tenants, and they are production ready. Obviously, documentation will be updated. We'll push out the documentation as today as well. The dialog framework will go GA, and this is technically some leftovers. Unfortunately, we forgot about something in our code, which is indicating that it's still in beta status. Big thing, obviously, is the tenant-wide deployment of SharePoint Framework extension. So basically, from an app catalog, you're able to say, hey, this SharePoint Framework extension, I want that to be enabled in every single communication site in my tenant. With the snap of our fingers, bam, your footers and headers and whatever will be automatically available across all of the sites, potentially, if you want. You can actually target to every single site from a modern experience perspective. The key point to remember on the extensions is that the extensions only work on the modern experience, not on the classic experience. So you can't use the tenant-wide deployment option for classic experience, but for modern experience, everything works in any single file. Now, in what is it? Rolf Bombs. Anyway, for 1.7, so we needed to actually postpone some capabilities which were originally planning to put in the 1.6, and they were unfortunate. They missed the date marker, and they're now in 1.7. So, for example, SharePoint 2019 native support in Yeoman, and then Socket.io preview, which actually we're debating if we could actually do a mid-release between 1.6 and 1.7 because it's an isolated separate package. So let's see if that happens. GA of dynamic data is planned to be in 1.7. Preview of Teams tab development, and Socket.io I mentioned, React 16 support was delayed there. And there's a few cool things which we will actually announce in Ignite within a few weeks related on addressing the common asks, what people are actually asking to be supported in SharePoint Framework. ETA for 1.7 right now is end of October. So we're doing this not on the Ignite timeframe. We will show capabilities in Ignite, and then we'll finalize them, and then we ship them in October to make sure that everything is available. So on Vincent's question, so Generate 1.7 will support SP19, which will run 1.4.1, correct? Yes, technically yes. So it will run 1.4/1.41. It will be a mixture of both versions. So basically in the Yeoman generator, it will ask, are you going to target on SharePoint Online, SharePoint 2016 above, and SharePoint 2019 above? And then if you choose the SharePoint 2019, it's going to point the packages to 1.4.1, except for the Graph APIs, because Graph APIs are not available in Opera. Now, obviously, there will be also enhanced SharePoint support in a Graph API. We can announce some things there in Ignite. So we're looking into, well, that there's plenty of work being done on there. There will be general feature improvements on the other areas, so functionality areas like site design, site scripts, modern themes, and all of that stuff. And then I just wanted to make sure that this is mentioned in our roadmap slides as well. So CSM.NET Standard / PowerShell Core, they both are in the roadmap, but these are now scheduled to get started on after Ignite. So hopefully by end of the year, we'll have a CSM.NET Standard officially out for Microsoft, which clearly has a clear demand as well. Good. Is list view formatting possibly dropping with 1.6? On David's question on the view formatting is actually not part of SharePoint Framework. So SharePoint Framework is more on when we write a code, when you develop, when you write script. View formatting and column formatting are shipping as an independent functionalities, more like a citizen developer functionalities, and view formatting should be out before Ignite as well. I'm still waiting. I don't know what is the exact date when the blog post goes live, but it's coming pretty soon as well. Now, that's pretty much from my side. Just a reminder on SharePoint Starter Kit. Now that the Microsoft Graph APIs will go live in GA, this particular solution contains 9 different Microsoft Graph web parts. For example, show my latest email, show my upcoming calendar in meetings, show my open tasks and all of that stuff, or show my contacts. Those web parts are available for you from a source code perspective from the SharePoint Starter Kit. It has not yet been updated to 1.6. It will be updated to 1.6 hopefully next week. So the team is working on getting this one updated. Now that the 1.6, crossing fingers, will go live later today. This is a big announcement. Hopefully it is today. Now, typically we don't say anything beforehand when we actually release things. Now we're talking a few hours, so hopefully this will go fine. And the reason why we don't want to say anything beforehand is that if we say a date and then we need to delay, then you get a dependency on that date and then you complain, then you're mad at Microsoft because you said that it's going to go live and then it didn't. So that's the reason why we don't actually typically say dates, but it should be fine today. Cool. That's everything from my side. So PnP JS, Patrick.
So this will take over just a second here. So quick updates on the PNP JS Clientside Libraries. Next release is targeted for September 7th. This I mentioned last call. This might be a major release. It's not going to be. It's going to be 1.1.5, so falling right in line. It's mostly going to be internal changes, so should be fairly invisible to folks consuming the library. But if you see some issues, because we did make internal changes to how some things work, if you see issues, please just report them. We'll get them fixed just as quick as we can. But we've also included a bunch of new functionality. So I would encourage you to try out the current beta is up to date. Please give us some feedback on that. We've already gotten some great feedback on that as well. Updates on the CDN guidance are coming. We've worked with some folks on the engineering team to better understand how to integrate with the SPFx externals. And then so that stuff will get updated with the next release. We used to use a custom dictionary class. We've removed that in favor of map. And we used to use some custom error classes, and we've just gone ahead and removed those in favor of just throwing a new error instead of a new one of our errors. We also some good ideas from the community. One of them was support for caching search results. So that's now going to be supported. There's going to be a new method as well as the search object itself. Search instances will support the using caching chaining. So we'll have that coming in the next release and much more. So we got the changelog, which right now the updated changelog is sitting in kind of a giant pull request, but we'll get that stuff merged likely later today or tomorrow morning so we can get the Friday beta out for everybody. One thing I wanted to mention is we definitely wanted to encourage you to submit pull requests. We get a lot of great ideas from folks, and we sometimes have a lot of time and sometimes don't have a lot of time to implement those things. So want to make it clear, we definitely encourage pull requests. If you want to contribute, if you want to see your idea definitely make it into the next version, a pull request is the way to do that. So we very much accept those, very much encourage those. Don't want to make folks think that we're not looking for contributions. We definitely are. So your pull requests are absolutely encouraged. The only thing I would say, if you're going to do some very large change, just reach out first. You can open an issue. We'll discuss it. I just want to make sure it's something we'll be able to merge before you spend a whole lot of time on something. But absolutely welcome those contributions and pull requests. And down there at the bottom, pnp.github.io/pnpjs. We've got the documentation there. We've also got I've got a little bit of work around finalizing it. Need to work with Chris Kent. Did a great job of updating the documentation. Is going to be a great update. It looks a lot better, and I think it's going to be a lot easier to navigate. So excited about that. That'll be part of the next release as well. PNP JS on Twitter, and you can always follow me at Mediocre Bowler on Twitter for updates around pretty much the PNP JS client-side libraries. Moving to updates around the Office 365 CLI. Excuse me. New beta version 1.6.0 is coming out, or is out, excuse me, with support for managing content types, fields, modern pages, Microsoft Teams, as well as upgrading SPFx projects in all versions from 1 to 1.5.1. If you haven't checked that last capability out, it's really cool. It allows you to take your existing SharePoint Framework solutions that may have been built on an earlier version and upgrade them to the latest version. So really cool capability, really neat thing. Please do try that out. Certainly, if you see any problems, definitely report those. Want to get those resolved. But it's a really cool capability that's gotten added to the CLI there. And I apologize. I think Waldeck did a lot of that. I think AC did a lot of that, and perhaps some others from the community. Apologize if I've left anybody out. But check that capability out. Very cool. And some other work that continues in progress is around the cross-platform PnP starter kit setup script. So that would be the ability to set up the starter kit using the CLI. So that would be a very cool thing and kind of unlock some cross-platform capability. And then as well some additional commands. And we always have that open question, what else would you like to see? So just submit an issue with your ideas on how to expand the CLI or any of the other projects we're doing. We always welcome that feedback. And you can install the latest version from npm with npm install -g at pnp/office365-CLI. There's an AKA MS link down there at the bottom for more information, as well as you can follow the hashtag Office365 CLI on Twitter. There's a Gitter channel, and as well that docs link for more information and getting started. Now, updates around the SPFx reusable controls. Not as much updates this week. Elio has been super busy on some believe it or not, of his real job. I can't believe he's doing that. But just want to remind folks, if you haven't checked out the reusable controls, there's two flavors. There's the property controls, which are designed to work easily inside the property pane when you edit your SharePoint Framework web parts. Could save you a lot of time and effort for creating very rich editing experiences for your web parts. As well, the React wow, I am just babbling today. React content controls, which serve to really enhance your experience inside the presentation of your web parts. So those are going to give you more control, and then as well really save you a lot of time and building these rich experiences. And because they're built on the Office UI fabric, you're going to get that seamless experience inside SharePoint where it looks like built-in functionality. So check out both of these packages. Really cool. Will definitely save you some time. and a lot of effort in sort of creating these things on your own. So check those out. The two most used is the placeholder control and the web part title control. So check those out. And then some upcoming work. We're feeding controls from the first party out-of-the-box engineering work. So we're doing a lot of give and take back and forth between this reusable control work and the actual engineering teams to really create that rich experience. And then, as always, we're working to improve all the existing controls we have. So if you have ideas or see issues with any of those, please do report them. We absolutely want to get those fixed and, again, make it better for everybody. That's the goal of kind of all this work. So more information, 2 links down there at the bottom will take you to the docs for the property controls and the reusable content controls. There you can see the links. So check those out. And definitely, if you're doing SharePoint Framework development, do have a look at these controls. They are a real time saver. It's really valuable contribution to the community, and there's been a lot of community work there as well. I don't mean to say it's just Elio working on those. A lot of other folks have pitched in, and we very much appreciate everybody's involvement. So with that, I will turn things over to Matty for his demo. This is an application customizer to notify end users inside SharePoint that the underlying group has been archived. Hopefully I've said that right.
Yeah, you have a really good way of pronunciation Finnish. It's Matti, not Matti.
Yeah, it's Matti.
So.
Okay, thanks.
All good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, all good, all good. Sorry, Patrick.
Very good. Just
That's
trying
fine.
to share.
I'll start
share
making fun of you and you mispronounce our words.
That's fine.
Okay, there will be a lot in the next few minutes. Oh, okay. So it's actually good afternoon from Finland. And here's a little info slide, because this is my first.
Give me 1 second. On our
sorry,
side here.
sorry.
Getting it.
Yeah,
All right,
sorry.
all set.
Because this is my first contribution, actually a first demo. So my name is Matti Paukkonen. I'm from Finland, working as a senior architect on Innofactor, which is a Finnish IT company operating in the Nordics. Currently working with new business offerings, modern employee experience, teamwork, stuff like that for like SharePoint, Teams, Office 365, etc. Been working with SharePoint since 2010, with 2003 to 2016 versions and online, of course. Here's my Twitter, and I also started a blog, which is quite empty actually, and most of it is still in Finnish, but you can check it out if you want. That's it about the intro. Then about the demo, I don't want to save it. So today I'm actually demonstrating my hobby project, a little hobby project, which is a simple application customizer, which is notifying the end user if the team behind the team site is set as archived. I don't know, is it actually a group property? Because I didn't find it from the Graph API, but the Teams beta API actually returns it. So to the demo then. Yeah, the solution is actually utilizing Microsoft Graph Teams beta API and also some PNP JS Core. Still, I'm planning to actually migrate to PNP JS later, and also to the 1.6 SPFx version later today, maybe. Yeah, about the demo. Here's a just newly created, fresh out of the box modern team site, where I have already connected to a team, and also it's loading the application customizer from my local environment. I have Gulp server already running there. So it's not currently displaying anything, but then I will go to my Teams client and go to managing my teams and actually looking for my PnP demo team and hitting the 3 dots and setting it as archived, and also making it read only, because I think this should be actually checked already. That doesn't matter actually how it works. And as you can see, it's now archived. Then I get back to the site and just hit refresh. And once everything is actually loaded, it will display that the little notification that this team is actually set as archived. So simple as that. I think powerful, but of course simple. And hey, where can I actually find my code? Then a little bit of code, because there is only a little bit of code here. So first is actually getting the group ID from sites root web's all properties with PNP JS Core. And if the actual group ID is actually found, it's just going to the render placeholders function, and then actually uses the MS Graph client and the team's beta API to get the team corresponding with that ID. And if there is a response, because early in the morning there wasn't any response, it just gave me a 401. I don't know why, but it got fixed during this call. And if the isArchive property, which is actually returned also, is set to true, it's just going to render a little React element, which just containing a message bar where is the actual type is set to server warning, and there is some localization also included. And for packaging, we just need some Graph API permissions, so there should be a scope group read all included to make this work. Then about the deployment side, still we need to do something for deployment, and I have already made a PowerShell script available, which is kind of a useless after today, maybe. So it's just adding the user custom action for this application customizer. Hey, and I actually forgot to actually upload it here, but this is just normal operation. I don't know why all of these are missing here. So if I just go to my app catalog and just drop the package here, this is all familiar to you, I think, and make this available to all sites and deploy. And then I need to also go to the admin center and go to the API management. Hey, what is this? Oh. And just approve the access to Microsoft Graph. And of course, I have done it before, so it's already there. So I don't need to do it again. Okay. Well, as sorted it is, that's it. Any questions?
Very cool. Great demo there. Any questions, you can ask them in the IM window, and we'll get responses there. So now, let's switch back momentarily to the slides.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll get back just a second to the slides here. And David, you are up, although it just looks like, did we make you a presenter? Oh, there you are, yep. So you are all set if you want to take over. All right, I can see your screen. I think you might still be muted. Hey, David, if you can hear me, you're still muted in here. Uh-oh, microphone is grayed out. Interesting. I can't unmute you either. If you want to drop and reconnect real quick, we can give that a try. We could do a little impromptu Q&A, and we'll see if that gets that resolved. I'm not sure what that might be. Or you're saying Mike want to
Hey.
talk?
This is Mike Tolley.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, so yes, Dave, I guess you'll just show the stuff as we talk. So we built it's called, let me know the name of this, the Lincoln Handlebars template solution in the SPDev solutions for SPFx web parts. The URL you see here, I believe, is where you actually can go to find them. And then I guess, Dave, you want to go to the exactly. Okay, so I guess to do a small demo of each of the web parts before we go deeper into the handlebar template. There are 4 different web parts that exist in that package. You have a links list, which you'll see called featured topics on his display, where his mouse is hovering. And then can you edit the page, Dave, and go into the property panel for that? Okay, so there are a few different layouts we've created. Large icon, a list, and then if you wanted to, you could actually have a group list to group items together. Each of the web parts also supports a list fact mode, where you can select a list and map columns to the different values. Okay, I think demo gods are fun. I think you might have to refresh the page to see the columns. I'll have to take a look at that. But yeah, you could then just map the individual columns on the list into the different properties that you see for the hub links or any of the other web parts we have. The next web part type would be the featured contents web part. Which, do we have one of those on this page, Dave, or is it on the guidance page? It's the Office 365 services that you see. And again, this has several layouts as well that can be used.
Mike, any chance you could actually reduce the volume on your side? Because the pings, whenever somebody sends a message, it sounds really hard on our side.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Is that better?
Yep, much better. Thank
Cool.
you.
So then, yeah, there in the basic mode, which is the non-list fact mode, we actually set it up so you can go in and edit the individual items. So you go in and then you can, as you type, it'll update, obviously. So you could have them either stored within the web part or as a list fact view that you could then use on multiple different pages. And so what you see here for the link picker and image picker, we actually did create the ability to add branded images into it. And there is a configuration file. Dave, if you can go to the SPDev Solutions tab and go to Source. I believe it's Components. and link picker panel. So the approved images JSON. But yeah, so you can set up which library in SharePoint you'd want to have as your approved images that can then be shown, can be chosen from anywhere. And finally, we have a box button, I believe. That's going to be at the top. And this one's pretty simple. It's just you have the large box buttons and you have the ability to either have it a theme text and border or theme background with white text. And finally, I guess the most flexible of them would be the template web part, which relies on a handlebar template to produce the display. So for the handlebar template, you can either back it by a list or by search. And you would just select the list and the filters, and then Dave, since we're not going to save this page, can you add a blank template web part to the page so we can show what happens when you first add it? So when you first go and configure and select a library, it will generate a template of the different fields that you could use in the handlebar template, as well as you can download that template as the start for building your own display. And yeah, the template itself is just a generic handlebar template. And then can you go back to the original page, Dave? And then after doing the handlebar template itself, you have the ability to check the checkbox for optimizing the template, which precompiles the handlebar template to improve the performance. But it's kind of the trade-off where you have, in order to rebuild the template after changes, you have to put the page back into edit mode. You don't have to change anything within the web part. Putting it to edit mode will cause the recompiling of the template, but it's not going to just change on the fly if you change the handlebar template. Then you can also assign a CSS file and a JavaScript file to the template web part to be able to enhance its styles and functions. And we added a container class that you can put a CSS class around the entire handlebar template web part in order to target the CSS to be specific to this specific web part instance. And the only restriction that this web part currently has is it can only be added to sites that have the no script turned off. So it has to be script enabled.
David, can you zoom in slightly on the XML? I think that there was a request on doing that, so it just shows how the templating is working, and it's pretty cool that it's then mapping the results as such.
Yeah. So. Yep, it's just standard, yeah. So I guess, any questions on any of the web parts?
In a unmuted or blocked situation, but this is basically where we are actually seeing this from Shire. So this is Shire's, apparently Shire's tenant, where this is used in production usage. So this is web part which is used by Shire company in production as well.
Yep.
So really cool stuff, and David and Mike, and there has been quite a few MVPs actually involved of implementing this web part. The web part solution is actually open sourced in GitHub under the SPDev solutions. So the link is in the iron window. We'll put it in the video notes as well. It's really great functionality. It's been there actually for quite a long time as well. So it's been helping people to adapt the templating system in multiple ways. So really cool stuff, absolutely. And now that I'm remembering, I think we have a full list of authors here somewhere. No, we don't actually, unfortunately. So I can't give credits for all of the MVPs who have been involved in this, because this does, unfortunately, the README is missing all of the authors.
It would have been myself, Julie Turner, and Bob German.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Cool. Is that link picker dialog able to pull out a reusable component, or is it tightly coupled? So there was a link picker dialog
It is its own component within our source. Let me see if I can. Can you make me a presenter and I'll share my screen?
You are actually. So.
Or I guess no, Dave. If you just share the GitHub repo, you can do that.
David was too fast on closing sharing.
That's fine. I'll just
share his.
Okay, so yeah, if you go into the components, Dave, this is the link picker panel that you saw in here, and you can, and then that is just added and implemented into the different places where we needed to have URL selected.
Now, related on this one, so obviously this could be potentially included in the reusable controls, the PnP SPFx reusable controls. So it would be in the reusable, really easily reusable from a package. So we can absolutely help on getting this one on the reusable controls, because the PnP reusable controls, we source some of those ideas obviously from these solutions and also from out of the box controls which we use internally in engineering. Because we can't open source them, we actually share some of the code through the PnP reusable controls, which we've mentioned earlier this call. This could be a potential control to get included there as well, if you guys are interested and open for that. And we can talk about that one, obviously, whenever it's suitable. Anyway, so really great demo and great functionality, great solution, absolutely. So should we go back on the slides, Patrick? We actually have 12 minutes. This is good. We have time for Q&A, because typically we take too much time on the, well, not too much time, but more time on the code level as well, and analyzing how things are being built. Well, I talk too much, so that's fair. That's what you're trying to say, right?
And the slides have reset.
No worries, David. No worries, David.
Through all this here, running into issue. Click. Just a quick review of everything we've covered today. So Q&A. Who's got Q's? We've got A's.
Oh, we do?
Maybe. Or we have things like, well, that's a very interesting question. We'll have to discuss that and get back to you.
Yes. Modern Experience API, undocumented 16.18.9. That's probably an issue list in the SPDev issues. Having actually direct link is always good, but let's see, 1689. So, yes, so there's certain APIs which unfortunately are still undocumented. We are tracking these. These are being routed to the right feature crews. The problem in the menu of the API. So how would I put this in a polite way that my colleagues in the feature PMs wouldn't get angry? So in some of the feature crews, the PMs prioritize first-party experience, and they forgot about that the third party, like the developers, might be interested on the capability. And this is mainly because they want to get their functionality first out so that they can get feedback in. And that's basically the reason why quite often you see some new web parts using some APIs which are not unfortunately documented. So that's basically unfortunate side effect of getting stuff out as fast as possible. Now, we are trying to figure out how to get this sorted internally in engineering. It is a fight between the amount of resources plus the processes plus the demand of shipping plus the minimal viable product approach and all of that. So I do not have a timelines or any updates on this particular 1689 item, unfortunately, but we do understand the challenge of first party having access on certain APIs which are not documented for third party, because that kind of breaks the promise what we've been saying. For SharePoint Framework, you're using exactly the same tooling, exactly the same APIs as first party. And unless we in engineering actually expose these APIs and document the APIs, you can't really use the APIs, so you can't achieve the same thing. So it is acknowledged. This is internal debate, internal discussion in engineering, how we get this one resolved in the long run. So, and I can't provide any additional details on that. PnP provisioning stuff, well, that's a curveball. Migrations will be able to go from 2013 to 2019. So the PnP provisioning is for provisioning. It's not actually technically for migration. So we do not support extracting of content. And we support extracting of content only on a welcome page, not on any other page. And that's really why, and it's a knowingly decision that we're not looking into moving to the migration world. Now, will the same template work in 2013 or 2019? Answer is actually yes. The same template does work in 2013 and 2019. So by default, that should be fine. We do not have, however, PnP PowerShell or PnP CSUM right now for 2019. If you use 2016 version or SharePoint Online PnP PowerShell, it will work with 2019 preview for now. Eventually, it will break whenever 2019 is falling behind of the API changes. Complex story. Maybe we should actually talk about this one in this, not in the SPFx call, but on the other one in a week from now. So what is the version and where we're going forward? Good point. David has a question on any APIs in work for audience targeting. Yes, there is an APIs in work for audience targeting. So one of the big things where we are betting now, there will be plenty of talks on this one in Ignite, is really the communication sites and the fact that you would be able to use communication sites as your portal platform, and also addressing the gaps in the communication sites comparing to the classic publishing. And one of those gaps, and known gaps, is absolutely audience targeting, because that is audience targeting worked really well in on-premises because you would be able to control how often audiences were compiled. In SharePoint Online, audience targeting actually does not work because in the SharePoint Online, audiences are compiled once a week, and that's way too rarely. So in SharePoint Online, you should be targeting based on user profile attributes, not based on audiences, because you can't really, the classic audience model isn't really working that well. For future, there will be ways of defining audiences and scopes and groups and everything else. So that's in the works. So you're able to say this web part would be visible only for a subset of people based on this attribute, for example, in a user profile. But it's what it will be, how it will actually work in detail. What's the API layer of that? There's nothing we can share in detail right now, because we don't want to obviously overpromise and then not deliver, and then you'll be angry. So the classic Microsoft way of saying, well, I can't say anything, but we're absolutely looking into that. So let's see. That was David's question. SPA single page application capability in SPFx. There will be discussions on that one in Ignite, so I can't go to too much details. Ignite, I think it's the Wednesday session, or is it Thursday? It's Luca and Pat right after my session, the PnP open source session on Wednesday or Thursday afternoon, based on the current schedule. We're going to talk about all of the details on that. Can we get multi-geo on developer tenant? I do not think so. The answer is no. It's not definitely part of the developer tenant functionalities. It is such a big thing actually, because multi-geo basically means that you have multiple tenants. So it's not part of the developer tenant setup. If that last web part allows injecting JavaScript, this is a good question from Mark, actually, and this is really, really fundamental question. If that last web part, as an example, the last web part, which David showed and Mike showed, allows injecting JavaScript, how do you presume the handle security to avoid abuse, or is it the only way to set no script and block completely? Now, the web part which I saw is actually a SharePoint Framework web part. And that SharePoint Framework web part, which you saw, does actually work in a no-script sites, because it is a SharePoint Framework web part which has been approved to be used in the tenant by the tenant administrator whenever the application was added on the add catalog. So basically, in this case, in this particular case, in Shire's case or David's and Mike's case, that web part, even though you can potentially add scripts on it if it allows scripting, it can be used in a no-script sites because it has been approved by the tenant administrator by allowing SharePoint Framework solution to be added, including that functionality. And this comes down on the fact that people and administrators and whoever owns the app catalog really needs to understand what are they shipping. So what's inside of the packages? Basically, any SharePoint Framework solution inside of those packages can contain script, and the scripts are potential security threats. So it's almost like the classic farm solutions in on-premises. You seriously needed to know what's inside of the solution, because otherwise you might compromise your farm or you might compromise your tenant. But that's what the SharePoint Framework gives you, is a centralized control for allowing still scripts, but you have the governance, you have the administrative operations. You're able to pull support for the components from the one centralized location, which is the app catalog. Now, if you don't review your code, if you just put anything on the app catalog here, and your end users are able to then inject whatever random script or the solution contains random stuff, yes, you basically allowed yourself potentially having a security issue. So it is really important to realize how these things actually work. When will there be a season REST API for the content deployment and migration API we all loved since most 2007? Oliver, that's a joke. I'm not going to answer on that one. So, no, that's never going to happen. Daniel, should we definitely stop using content type hubs and provision content types in each individual modern sites? And this is a good question from Daniel Westerlake, and this is really, really, really subject topic. Last time when I said something, there was like 25 comments immediately in the IM window saying, yeah, but what if I do X and Y and Z, and what if I do X and Y and Z? That's really the reason why we're trying to think through how do we message this properly. But we are not really currently investing on content type hub. So right now, currently, the thinking is more on using site designs, using PnP provisioning, using remote provisioning techniques to make sure that you have the needed content types and metadata available in the sites which are getting created. Now, it has implications, and we get that, and we're looking into addressing those implications, like a centralized control for those content types and all of that. Theoretically, content type hub in paper, in slides, it's magical. It's pixie dust. It's just completely awesome. You have one location to control your content type, and those are getting replicated anywhere. The problem is the performance implications of that. So whenever you're creating a site collection, those content types are not actually there by default immediately. They are gradually getting, let's say, leaked to that newly created site collection, which is one complaint from customers. And the other complaint would be then, well, but I want to have content types immediately on that site collection. Okay, if we do that, then the site collection provisioning takes longer. And then the customers are complaining that why does it take so long to create my site collection? So it's one of these things where the original intention of Content Type Hub, absolutely good, absolutely brilliant. The current implementation of Content Type Hub isn't really scalable. It has performance issues, and we're looking into alternative options on that. And what it will be exactly, it's not something which we precisely even know. But using remote provisioning as part of site designs, getting content types inside of the site collection, or using PnP provisioning to get them in is absolutely a future-proven process. Okay, David is saying that web part will not show on a script, no script site. That is an option in the side of the web part solution, so that's absolutely valid as well. And thank you, Stephen, for defining my talk. So if my talk is on Wednesday 2:15 to 3:30, then Luca and Pat's session is from 4 in that Wednesday in this. I think it's the third floor of the conference center anyway. Most sites only use pre-built templates. That is absolutely true. So typically, the whole metadata discussion is heading to the over time. So the whole metadata discussion is actually heading to the direction where in past people wanted to have a mandatory metadata settings. The problem was that then end users were not willing to set the metadata. So what we're doing more and more in Microsoft and in SharePoint is that we're planning to use artificial intelligence. We're planning to use automatic tagging, automatic metadata, and then that would mean that the end users are not being asked to actually fulfill the metadata. It is being set based on the user profile, based on the file, based on organization of that, and that would actually solve the requirement of having the metadata as a end user editable setting. So, but that's really where we're heading to, gradually. So, are we planning to deprecate CT Hub? No comments, no plans for now. We're not, well, we're saying that we do not invest on it. Deprecation, basically, quite often people think that deprecation means that it's no longer supported. Deprecation actually means that we're no longer investing on it. So it doesn't mean that it's going to go away. Now, we're over time. I think we need to close as well. And right? Let's see if there's any good questions still on the eye window. Rockmeet hard place, yes, I know.
So the next SPFx JavaScript meeting will be September 13th. That's in 2 weeks. Look forward to seeing everybody then. We've got 2 great demos lined up for that. The next general SharePoint Development Special Interest Group meeting will be next Thursday, September 6th. And look forward to seeing folks at that as well. Everybody have a great weekend. Thanks for joining the call. Thanks for the great demos today. Appreciate everybody's time. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.